Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to try to play some Inquisition Weirdos, which is to say I'm going to try playing Inquisitor 28, often referred to as Inq28, Inq28, using the Space Weirdos solo rules from Garsky Games. Now, Inquisitor 28, as I understand it, is sort of a catch-all term used to describe tabletop scenarios that have the same setting and aesthetic as Games Workshop's Inquisitor game from way back in 2001. But since the Inquisitor rule set is kind of dense, Inquisitor 28 players will often employ lighter weight rules such as Necromunda, Planet 28, or Grimdark Future Firefight to drive the gameplay, and they also typically use 28mm minis instead of the giant 54mm Inquisitor figures. So as I said, today I'm going to take a stab at playing Inquisitor 28 using the Space Weirdos solo rules. I'm also going to use this old school Necromunda Underhive terrain from circa 1995. Okay, so the story today is that the infamous Chaos Sorcerer, Phineas Nightsoil, has infiltrated the Underhive. Phineas doesn't have any shooting. He can fight in a brawl if he needs to, but he's all about psychic power. So he has fear, mind control, meat puppet, and he's a sorcerer, and he has psychic focus. So that's what he's going to try to do, is use his psychic powers to defeat the Inquisition. Then he has 4 lowly cultists back here. They each have a hand weapon and an auto pistol. And in the back row behind them, there are 3 wrath demons. They can teleport. They have heavy armor and large powered weapons. And the whole warband is made up of fanatics. So when they roll their willpower rolls, on anything except for psychic powers, they get +1 die type. So Phineas and his cult have infiltrated the Underhive, and they're trying to spread their message amongst the different gang members. And so the Inquisition really needs to root these guys out before the message takes hold and they have a full chaos outbreak on their hands. So to combat this mind virus in the Underhive, the Empire has dispatched Inquisitor Titus Liberius Maximus. His power staff there counts as an energy rifle and a large melee weapon. Plus he has heavy armor, extra limbs, and cybernetics, because he's been enhanced by the Mechanicus. Helping out Titus Liberius Maximus, right here we have Ignis the Incinerator. He's a retinue member with a flamer. Over here we have an assassin named Shade. Shade has a sniper rifle, a melee weapon, a stealth suit, and a targeting reticule. These Inquisitors can take more gear than a typical warband because their warband trait is cyborgs, so many of them are rocking mechanical and electronic upgrades. Back here we have Father Dogma, who's kind of a healer. Draulic Gearman, who has an auto pistol, a large power weapon, and cybernetics. And way in the back here we have Sergeant Hobnail, who has a shotgun, a grenade, and heavy armor. So both of these warbands are 125 points, but the cultists are going to be controlled by the game's solo mechanics. The victory conditions are going to be try to kill the enemy leader, that's 1 victory point, and try to break the enemy gang. So if either warband suffers 50% losses or greater, they will break and flee the battlefield, and that's also a victory point. So a total victory would be killing the leader and breaking the warband, and maybe a minor victory would be doing one of those things. So just to enhance the game control shenanigans, I'm going to place these cultists back here out of line of sight, and I'm going to use these tiles instead of the miniatures at first. So these tiles are going to be flipped over. I'm going to place them without looking in various strategic spots, and once the Inquisition gets line of sight on a tile, then I'll flip it over and we'll see what it is. So if it's a 1, it's a cultist. If it's a 2, it's a demon. And if it's a 3, it's Phineas Nightsoil, the Chaos Sorcerer. And also, if nobody has line of sight on the tiles and I have to activate somebody for the game, then I'll flip over a tile kind of based on its proximity to the Inquisition, and we'll see what it is. So it could be anything. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of today's game. We have the Inquisition moving into the Underhive to try to root out the cult, and the cult is going to try to murder the Inquisitor and as many of his warband as they can. And all of this conflict will be resolved one way or the other by using the Space Weirdos solo rules to play an old school game of Inquisitor 28. So if that sounds good, I will place the tiles and hand the story over to today's special guest narrator.
Greetings, Operative. You and you alone are authorized to view this unsanctioned chronicle of the events which occurred during Inquisitorial Mission 834AX on the Imperial Restitution planet of Tartarus. This simulation represents an unredacted mission record based on the initial debriefing and subsequent full interrogation of all survivors, as well as data extracted from their cybernetic implants. Once viewed, this chronicle will be irrevocably purged from all Imperial records. You alone will carry the burden of this knowledge. Use it as your duty requires, and praise be to the Emperor. After months of searching, Inquisitor Titus Liberius Maximus and his loyal retinue have tracked the apostate Phineas Nightsoil to an ancient maintenance complex located deep beneath the penal city of Acheron. However, the abandoned facility is a rat's nest of treacherous corridors and walkways. To prevent the heretic from escaping, Maximus splits his retinue into two groups, each entering the complex from a different side. Inquisitor Maximus, along with the masked sniper known only as Shade, and the stout veteran Sergeant Hobnail, enter the facility from the right, while the Imperial preacher known as Father Dogma, the former pitfighter Draulic Gearman and the pyromaniac Ignis the Incinerator approach the industrial ruins from the left. Invoking the will of the Emperor, Maximus spends one of his 3 command points this turn, which gives Shade the sniper enough movement to reach an elevated position. Shade is a deadly marksman at long range, but having no armour, he is extremely vulnerable in close quarters. From his new vantage point, Shade spies a filthy minion of chaos lurking on another platform some distance away. It is a lowly, gibbering cultist, armed with blade and pistol. Unfortunately, Shade has already used all 3 of his actions this turn, otherwise he'd happily treat that cultist to an Imperial bullet. During the Chaos Cult's activation, the newly discovered cultist rolls on the appropriate bad guy activation table to determine his course of action. And, snivelling goon that he is, the cultist elects to cower in place. Thus ends his activation. Way to go, Forces of Chaos. On the Inquisition's turn, Imperial Army veteran Sergeant Hobnail uses 2 actions to jog forward. He'll use his 3rd to unleash buckshot on the exposed cultist, who remains cowering atop the nearby platform. To increase Sergeant Hobnail's odds of success, Inquisitor Maximus spends another precious command point. Heretics must be purged, after all. Plus, Sergeant Hobnail moved twice and his target is outside optimal shotgun range, so the Sergeant's blessed buckshot will need all the help it can get. The Sergeant's firepower roll defeats the cultist's defense roll. Eat lead, you filthy heretic. The holy buckshot strikes true and knocks the pawn of evil to the ground. Praise be to the Emperor. Unfortunately, the Sergeant's shotgun blast attracts the attention of another Chaos cultist, concealed nearby in the gloom. The foul heretic steps from the shadows and fires a pistol shot at Sergeant Hobnail, bolstered by the fiendish power of Chaos. The bullet hits the Sergeant's sturdy breastplate and sends the grizzled veteran running for cover, or as he calls it, making a prudent tactical withdrawal in service of the Emperor, which takes the Sergeant almost back to where he started. Needless to say, his boss is not impressed. Scowling with exasperation, Inquisitor Maximus charges his weapon and stomps toward the bothersome cultist, who he intends to smite with extreme prejudice. The strike is on target, though just barely, and it blasts the cultist off his feet. Feel the Emperor's wrath, heretic. Across the facility, more Chaos minions begin to stir, roused by the sound of gunfire and the screams of their brethren. Drawing his weapons, another Chaos thrall moves closer to the fight. Suddenly finding himself with a clear shot at the former pitfighter, Draulic Gearman, this comes as somewhat of a shock to both combatants. The hasty shot somehow grazes the inquisitorial cyborg, forcing Draulic to run for cover. Good thing Inquisitor Maximus isn't around. He'd be most displeased at witnessing another of his hand-picked witch hunters fleeing from a lowly cultist. With that in mind, Ignis the Incinerator decides it would be best to eliminate any witnesses, and resolves to purge the heretic with the Emperor's cleansing flame. Well, that certainly did the trick. Scratch one extra crispy cultist. Before the smoke even clears, however, a frenzied cultist appears on a nearby platform, unloading 3 rapid-fire shots at Ignis the Incinerator. Fortunately for the pyromaniac, none of the bullets find their mark. Next, Draulic Gearman leaps into action, eager to redeem himself after his earlier cowardice. Shooting on the run, Gearman takes a wild shot at the cultist above, who enjoys the benefit of cover. and very nearly puts a bullet in the wretched traitor, despite the long odds. A noble effort, Mr. Gearman. Suddenly the air crackles with arcane static. A warp portal splits the fabric of reality, disgorging a horrible wrath demon drawn to the material plane by the scent of blood, fear, and scorched human flesh. The vile warp spawn immediately spends 2 actions to teleport, successfully manifesting next to a rather gobsmacked Father Dogma. Fortunately, the Emperor protects. Inquisitor Maximus spends his final command point this turn to allow Father Dogma to strike first in combat. Perhaps the Imperial Preacher will have a fighting chance. Unfortunately, the strike is unsuccessful, perhaps because the healer is fighting a demon with a spiked club. The demon hits back with a massive thrice-cursed blade, striking the Imperial Preacher and knocking him to the floor. The demon assumes that victory is near, but he's in for a nasty surprise. Summoning all his righteous zeal, Father Dogma suddenly leaps to his feet and smites the monster with his sacred cudgel. It is a mighty blow, hammering the warp spawn to the ground. Praise be to the Emperor of Mankind. And with that, all 6 members of the Inquisitorial strike team have completed their activations this turn. However, there are still 3 more Chaos minions waiting to cause havoc. Like this cheeky demon who successfully teleports across the compound, manifests right next to Shade the Sniper, and then attempts to chop the marksman in half. Shade avoids that gruesome fate, but is still knocked down in the scuffle. To make matters worse, a 3rd demon bursts onto the material plane, successfully spends 2 actions to teleport, transports itself across the complex, and materializes right next to a startled Sergeant Hobnail. The foul warp spawn attacks with his thrice-cursed blade and promptly cleaves Hobnail from head to sternum. Oh well, there's no greater reward than to die serving the Empire. Farewell, Sergeant. And finally, the Dark Magus himself, Phineas Nightsoil, emerges from his meditation chamber and calmly strides forward to confront the Inquisition. At the end of turn 1, Sergeant Hobnail and a single lowly cultist are dead, and many more Chaos minions lie wounded throughout the compound. Let's see what carnage is unleashed in turn 2. Inquisitor Maximus wins the initiative roll, Emperor be praised, and marches in to confront Phineas Nightsoil, firing 2 power bolts at the sorcerer. Nightsoil considers spending a command point to dodge, but it wouldn't really improve his situation. The point is moot, however, as Maximus promptly misses with both shots. Perhaps the Inquisitor is having a crisis of faith. Invoking the darkest of forbidden powers, Phineas Nightsoil attempts to cast Meat Puppet. The unspeakable rite is successful, and the animated corpse of Sergeant Hobnail staggers from a nearby corridor, ready to obey the Dark Magus. As a sorcerer, Nightsoil's invocation required just a single action, so he can still move twice, leaving his undead thrall behind to cover his escape. On his activation, Shade the Sniper spends 1 action to stand up, and 2 more actions to break away from the demon, dropping back to ground level. This is just a momentary reprieve, however, as a 2nd demon rounds the corner and simply hacks the marksman to pieces. Goodbye, Shade. You contributed absolutely nothing to this endeavour. It appears that Father Dogma is the only retinue member able to match a demon in hand-to-hand combat. Clubbing the monster with all his righteous fury, the Imperial Preacher does manage to stagger the brute, but unfortunately fails to exorcise it from the material plane. Not for lack of trying, though. On the opposite side of the facility, another warp demon successfully spends 2 actions to teleport, travels across the compound, and unceremoniously drops in on Ignis the Incinerator. Hello, Ignis! The fiend lands a savage blow with his thrice-cursed blade, killing the pyromaniac where he stands. Goodbye, Ignis. Drowlic Gearman revs his chainsaw and charges in to avenge Ignis the Incinerator. However, the clever demon spends a command point to strike first, smiting the cyborg hard enough to knock him backwards 1 stick, after which the pit fighter falls down. Mr. Gearman is not looking forward to his next performance review. Inside the complex, the shambling corpse of Sergeant Hobnail levels its riot gun at a horrified Inquisitor Maximus, who spends a command point to back away, since buckshot is quite formidable at close range. The zombie pursues, albeit slowly, and fires twice, though it is now outside of optimal shotgun range. Fortunately, both blasts miss, sparing Maximus the indignity of being shot by a former subordinate. Despite being repeatedly clubbed by Father Dogma, this undaunted demon becomes unstaggered, rises to his feet and slashes at the stubborn Imperial preacher, landing a fearsome blow that kills the plucky padre. Fare thee well, loyal servant of the Emperor. With most members of his retinue now dead or undead, and a fifth about to become demon kibble, Inquisitor Maximus slinks off into the gloom. His current whereabouts are unknown. Meanwhile, Chaos Sorcerer Phineas Nightsoil remains master of his Underhive domain. We hope you enjoyed this narrative playthrough of Inquisitor 28, using the Space Weirdos solo rules from Garsky Games. Thank you very much for watching, and may the Emperor protect us all.